Devo spostuliterura na gomporesti audita. Caien vide nove, silentigas duonon della mondo. Filino, fratino, i cani ai patrino, i defendente demona in ago indeni frato. I laki alo, che nine nia pova su nuigi. Esta si magita povo kaiji. Sen fina serciado. Fantomo kun vera corpo, movado kun vera celo. Voccio pelata de colero, tiu i vorto estas la frapo, kiu mi rigas vin, tiu mesaggio mi esperas revenigas la equilibro.
Welcome back, everybody. It has been a long time. My name is Ramen Wukong, and let us get into it. We have a lot of stuff to go over, and I'm at a bit of a loss for time today, but we'll rush through it, shall we? As many of you may know, we had an announcement. Well, we've had a couple of let me see here. We've had a couple of things come and go, so let's get into that one. All right, we had a couple of voting things since we last talked. Obviously, the first was we've switched to a once a month format, right? So what we have here is when given the chance to vote, most of you said it's whatever, you didn't really care, with the second highest vote being the Martini. So all of our broadcasts for the time being are once a month, the last Sunday of the month. Okay. On that follow-up vote, we will, and of course the Martini won, so we'll be doing the Martini for the end of the month for the time being. The second vote that we did was, as many of you may have heard, Discord may be doing some, they call it vetting, but there are some ID checks that have ruffled the feathers of a lot of users, and if it becomes a problem, we will be creating a new server. I've already been playing around with a couple of them. Basically, Zulip has been kind of the one that I've been leaning towards, with TeamSpeak being brought back to my attention. I have to do some research on TeamSpeak on whether or not I like it, because they might wind up doing something similar to Discord, starting that whole thing over again. But basically, Zulip will allow us to run our own server on our own software, basically ensuring data privacy. It does centralize it to that server, but it allows us a lot of user privacy, your privacy. So we will be in the process of pursuing that further based on the votes from the community. As always, if you want to hop on our Discord server and give in your 2 cents, obviously, you're more than welcome to. Alright, so now we gotta be this thing that I call Scam Crawler Karl, right? This is a note that basically execs has popped up again. And this time it looks even to be more scammy as possible. We will not be supporting the new one, whatever it is. There is a lot going on around the net about it. In our announcements, there's a section about it to be aware that it is probably just another rug pull. So do your due diligence, but I am urging users at this time to not use this exchange. We will not be supporting it. We will not try to set anything up. So even if they do allow you to trade Bitoreum there, fuck them. Hey, that's my official position. We do have some interesting things going down here. Alright. So for the own site, obviously we've done a little bit of updating, including videos. This one should be today's broadcast. I'm not going to click on it because I don't want all that. More importantly, we will be developing, or in the process of developing, a new Explorer. This one runs on fairly open source software, but it just eats in space because it relies on MongoDB, which basically takes an archive of the blocks. So we have the block data, which is a lot for Explorers, and then we have MongoDB basically doubling the space allotment that it uses. So it just chews through data, basically doubling the size. So I am in the process of creating a new Explorer that operates on a live contingency, but that is a work in progress. It will also have the added effect of loading much quicker, because you don't have to wait for, like, when you click on one of these, which is a block hash, there is that slight delay. There's no delay for me because I'm probably within 300 miles of this particular server. But for those of you on the East Coast, or more likely our international residents, of this community, it will load much, much slower because this is based out of Northern California. I believe that's where this particular one is. So for me, it's quick. For you, it might not be. Also, let us bake a crypto make. Right? Because of a couple of things, this has actually come a long way pretty fast. We've been making some updates to this. Actually, let me swap over to the correct branch. In the dev branch, I have made a lot of changes to this application to make it run smoother, including that if you're trying to download the project initially and for whatever reason something doesn't work right, you can go in and change the project locally and now do refire. Right? And we have explained basically how to do that, including some flags and some interesting things here. So refire has been updated, bakery has been updated, because bakery will supersede bake as the default utility to use, and then what is currently being baked will be completely deprecated by version 3. But this software, if you're using the batch compiler bakery in conjunction with refire, that is a far more stable, fleshed out program than the traditional bake. Traditional bake will still work, but it creates files that probably are not what you want. So this, I think, is going to be a tool designed for a lot more people, and it will be fully customized out to incorporate some of those other features that Bake currently does as options if you choose to want them. Okay. And as some of you have pointed out to me, let's talk about transparency. So there were a couple people who had asked me in DMs specifically about this, because now if you look at the developer wallet on the Explorer, let's give it a second to load and explain what I mean. So if any of you really understands how these typically things normally work, is that I get in the developer pool 5% of every block reward, which right now is what, around 200, let's just say 240 Bitoreum per every block made, but that doesn't line up to what you're seeing here. It's 50,000. The reason is that many small transactions was eating up the input outputs of the original wallet. So what I have going is that wallet is still in existence, and when it gets to be, I think, 51,000 Bitoreum, it's 50,000 plus a 1,000 buffer, it will try to send out however much is in the wallet, always reserving 1,000 in the original wallet and then sending it out to the secondary wallet, which is actually what we're tracking here. So instead of seeing a whole bunch of small infinitesimal, like 200, 240 Bitoreum transactions, they are much larger. So they're not live, and there's always going to be that delay, because it does take, I think I get these once every three times a day. So about every 8 hours, I think, is more or less when this runs, with a couple of exceptions as we can see here. But basically this runs every 8 hours, about 3 times a day. So that way I don't get the input-output header issue that I was having before, and that if I actually need to pay people out directly out of this wallet, I can without too much fuss or muss. So that is one of the first things that happened with the transparency. So this will never fully add up, because this will always kind of lag behind, because as every 2 minutes happen, a typical block for Bitoreum, that 240 gets put in the primary wallet, and then once that wallet gets 50,000, it sends it out to the secondary one, and that's what we're tracking here is the secondary one. So this value might always be off by about 50,000 Bitoreum at any given time. Okay, so I'm being transparent about it, but I also wanted the wallet tracking in a meaningful way, and what I might actually wind up doing is have the secondary wallet so you can kind of track that with its compendium button, but at this point in time I'm only tracking the secondary wallet, not the primary wallet. This also hasn't been updated because I haven't finished the paperwork on it. As many of you may be aware, my company currently owns this project, not in a traditional sense. If there's somebody else that wants to take it over from me, they're more than welcome to, if they can provide me with the adequate details that they won't rug pull the community, because that's my biggest gripe. But in the meantime, my books have to match what is here, and we adopted a new accounting system earlier this month. I thought it was going to be a lot simpler to import the books from the old system into the new system, and that has not happened. So I'm still keeping this up, but also at the same point in time, clearly our books are now out of date. I am looking to get into this week to at least start adding Q1 of 2026 while keeping this data. But once this 2025 data gets finalized, it will actually become a button down here, and it'll just be a PDF, and then we will just go back to live tracking just this year, which right now obviously we're in Q1 2026, and by the end of March we'll be into Q2 of 2026 as well. So I did want to address that. I got a couple DMs about that, and I got a couple of, well, not emails. I think a couple people on Twitter also asked me basically the same kind of thing, that why are these records so far behind? And that's the reason why, because this actually has to be tracked in a traditional accounting sense, as this is being controlled by an actual company, and these funds have to be accounted for. And the reality is that took a lot more time, and my accountant's already on my ass about that. So please jump off my ass too. We'll get there when we get there. It'll probably be done by the time the tax files. So April, this will all be flushed out. Okay. We'll now switch over to letters from the Great Ape. Those are all the major announcements. So obviously the Martini ones, we're doing it at the end of the month. We do have a problem with Discord possibly being a problem for some of our users. So we will be looking into a secondary server. It'll probably be Zulip. I have to do a little bit more digging up on TeamSpeak. Don't trust the new execs portal, whatever they're going to call themselves. You can hop on our Discord in the announcement section. I talk about a little bit there. Many of other exchanges have said the same thing. I think Zpool has also said something about it. NestX has said something about it. And a couple of others have also said something about it, if they're aware. Some people aren't, some people are. It's a thing. Bitoreum Make, or Bake, or Bakery actually, has gotten a massive update only in the developer branch. So if you're on the GitHub, I do want to click over that and to explain, we are talking about the dev branch, right? See right here, it says dev versus release. Once I get all of the features fleshed out for the dev branch, I will push it into an official release, both in concept and in the release branch here. But if you do want to play around with this, is a very fleshed out application as of right now. It works brilliantly. Oh yes, and the naming override, which is a new feature, allows you to tag the release in Refire if you wanted to make like a nightly build, or you had something specifically about saying, oh well, I had to update the depends on this particular coin. Great. And I want to point out, this is not just for building Bitoreum. As you see here, you can build Yerbus, basically any Raptorium, and hell, even some Dash clones. Pure Dash clones also work, but that's only because the making process is very similar, and as long as the making process is very similar and the depends are readily available based on the make file in the particular GitHub, this will automatically compile. I do want to point out that that's what this does. This basically does what you would do manually, just from an automatic standpoint. And the code in which it operates will be, how do I go back to code? It will be defined in bakery.sh. So if you actually wanted to look at the program workflow, this is the entire workflow for how the operation works, what it's trying to download, what it'll install on your system, how it does it, and then the environments for which you can bake too. This has been fleshed out quite nicely, mostly because of errors with Fubit and their bullshit repository, and the recent rollback to Yerbus going back to version 3.1.4.20. And the kind of problems that had actually gave me some real good data to utilize this application. Okay, enough about that. Let's get to what you're really here for. Get down to the nitty and the gritty. Our section of dead letters, the letters to the Great Ape. This is where you get to ask me your questions. Obviously, the chat is open. I am monitoring it. I should also be monitoring Discord server. If you want to ask your questions, go ahead and ask them in where was that? Oh yeah, Space Cowboy. That's the one that I'm monitoring. So if you have any questions live on air before the end of our section, which will probably end in about 10 to 20 minutes, You can go ahead and ask. I will respond live to either the YouTube chat or the Discord server Space Monkeys. Right? In Space Monkeys, if you're watching and you want a question, go ahead and ask it now. All right. Question number 1. I'm new here and there's a lot going on. Where do I get started with the data? Good question. I would start reading in, first of all, the new Bitoreum GitHub. If you're familiar with how to read that information, there's a lot there. I have done my best to update a lot of those README, version release notes, things of that nature. There's a lot of data there that'll get you started going right. Obviously, in some of the compendium apps like Bake and Moonstone, it goes into depth about how those functions are supposed to work, like for running your own smart node as an example, compiling from source, things of that nature. Because a lot of these communities will always tell you, well, you should compile from source. You should. No lie there. But compiling from source requires a certain amount of expertise, and it's not readily apparent. It's actually why I put a great amount of time into the bake and bakery utilities, so that way people can compile from source, but with just a few clicks, without really, having to learn the whole process. Now, do I recommend you learn the whole process? Absolutely. Bake and bakery are just tools to get you there without fully understanding what you're doing. And as bad as it sounds, it allows you to compile from source more or less, unless there's some critical error, but it basically guarantees that the binary that you get out is clean. Not only is it clean, it should be relative to your specific installation, meaning that if you're baking for x86 32, then you're making a 32-bit version of the application for your machine, x86 64, 64-bit, ARM32, ARM64, so on and so forth. There are a couple of specialties for Ampere ARM and Raspberry Pi, which take a couple extra headers, which is beyond the scope of that. Those are really just for me to make those. Because with the Bitoreum, as I may have said in the past, because there were some issues with the compilation app having some not tested behavior in newer versions, primarily with GCC, anytime that I make a release, it's actually made in Ubuntu 18.04, and it'll be labeled generic. That way you know that you're getting something that was compiled from source, but it was on an older operating system, so that way it'll carry forward into pretty much any Debian clone, so Debian, Mint Linux, Ubuntu. It should just work. I do test them in virtual environments, sometimes even on bare metal, but mostly just virtual environments. But yeah, that's where I would start. I would start with the GitHub, move on to some of the compendium apps, and if you're not already overwhelmed with data, you can always hit me up on the Discord server or whatever new server I have going. That'll run in parallel. They won't be replacing, they're just going to run in parallel until one determines is where we're actually going to be, and if the Discord thing winds up being smoked, blah, 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 blah. Point is, go ahead and reach out to me if you are overwhelmed for data, because I have seen some new subscribers, new followers, new server members to the Discord, and I'm pretty sure you have questions, and I'm here for answers. This one was actually a pretty interesting one. Came to me by way of Blue Sky or Twitter. It says, what is irritating you today most? Adobe. Right. As many of you know, I recently bought a new machine with the intent specifically to port over all of my actual business over to a Linux model, because Windows is just becoming bloat. On top of the AI bloat that I'm not even going to get into, just the operating systems are getting massive and requiring more and more and more RAM. And with the elevated prices of RAM, that whole concept can get fucked, basically. So we've gone Linux. I got a nice new ThinkPad. It's a couple years old. I think it came out in 2021, but it's a beast machine. 32 gigs of RAM, DDR4, Ryzen. It's an older Ryzen 7 something or another. Boosts up to 4 gigs. Base clock is like 1.7 gigs. It's a great laptop. Good screen. Got some nice security features. Touch print for unlocking via my finger touch, and the PIV smart cards for really locking the system down. Great little machine. Love it to death. But I'm not installing Windows, so I've gone Linux, and this is where the Adobe, this is where Adobe can come in and get fucked. Adobe's official position is that they don't support Linux because they are afraid that there's just no community need for it because there are just not enough people on Linux to support it. Bullshit. Stop lying. You don't want to support Linux because you're afraid that people will pirate the shit out of your software. And I think we have come to the point in time where people are already pirating the shit out of your software, if they are, or they're just paying for the subscription. I know damn well you can get the subscription model to work on Linux, and professionals like myself will fucking use it. Does that mean that you have to do a little bit more work to make sure that it's supported on a shitload of other distros? Probably. Should you do it anyway? Abso-fucking-lutely, because more and more people are going to be dumping Windows. You see it all the time. It's being talked about on TikTok platforms, Reels for Instagram, Reels for Facebook, YouTube Shorts, right? It has been a trending topic for months that as Windows 11 AI bloatware approaches critical mass, or that bug where it was destroying solid states. Have you seen the fucking price of solid state drives right now? It's insane. And if the operating system is going to continue to be that fucking bad, you're going to get more and more people leaving the platform. And I don't suspect that Microsoft's position is going to change anytime soon. So, Adobe, get off your fucking ass, and for once in your goddamn life, support fucking Linux. Why? Because there aren't really any good software packages to replace it. Oh, but what about Canvas? What about GIMP? What about those pieces of software? They're great in their own rights overall, but they're no Adobe replacements, and we have to get over that fact. Adobe created a great piece of software, and it only supports Windows and Apple. And if you're not using any one of those operating systems, you don't have a choice. Your option then is to get fucked, okay? That is not a good operating mode. A lot of people have started making web versions, and I think Photoshop, and I know Lightroom has a version that operates in that way, but most of that stuff is disabled under Linux anyway because, oh, we require this to run. Well, then let us install it. No. Adobe's official position may be that there's not community support for it, but their actions imply something different. Their actions have basically said, fuck the Linux community, we don't want you on our software. So, what's irritating me today? Oh, Adobe, and your whole system of software platforms. You suck, you can eat a dick, and you just need to bite the bullet and start supporting fucking Linux. There are power users that are switching over because of Microsoft's crap, and in general, it has been my personal understanding that if you are a Microsoft user, you're probably not an Apple user, and if you're an Apple user, you're probably not going to go Microsoft. I will be buying more Apple hardware in the future, but it'll probably be more stationary, Apple Studio. I probably will not be getting an Apple laptop this year, which was actually one of the things I was looking at. But again, they just want too much money, and I just don't really want to invest it for basically having a mobile Adobe Studio when my desktop is more than capable, but my desktop can't come with me, which I will be leaving for the next couple of days anyway. So, that's what's irritating me today. Adobe, go fuck yourself. Third, how do people support us financially? Realistically, not directly. My company pays for a lot of the backbone servers directly out of their coffers. So like the Seed network that exists, that's being paid for directly from finances there. But if you really want to support us, you can shop at S-Mart.cc, although that store will be turned off for the next 2 days as I'm traveling because eBay kind of screwed up their away settings, and I don't want to get dinged for packages not going out on time when I will be leaving my general area for the next 2 days as I travel to a conference for one of my real jobs, security-based thing. So, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the audio was so goddamn high. That was my bad. Anyway, so I'll be traveling for the next couple of days. S-Mart.cc, you can still go to it, but I think the store will show up as disabled the second I leave the office today, which is in about an hour and a half. As I get ready for travel for the next couple of days, I will be back Tuesday night, so the store will come back on. I think it's set to come on at 8 o'clock in the morning relative to my time for Pacific West Coast Standard, so that way you can go back to shopping till your little heart is content. Okay? Next question. It looks like there was just one more. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading through it. To summarize, are there future updates planned? Yes. I've talked about them in great detail on other ones, so I'll be very, very brief. There is a minor and a major update planned for this year. There are no official dates for those updates to come out. I have had to go back and scrap the work that I've done a couple of times, such as the nature of software development. Basically, I'm pulling away from Raptorium builds and pulling closer and closer to Dash, which is basically what Raptorium more or less did, but there's a couple of features in there that they kind of broke the Dash core, and one of the reasons why I'm pulling so far away from Raptorium to get it posted back into Dash. Dash had a lot of features that solves a lot of my current problems, and even if those problems are not 100% curable by those solutions, Dash just had cleaner solutions for them, and Raptorium didn't. And I think newer Raptorium definitely did fix a lot of that. But the reality is that Raptorium's implementations of those features of Dash is still not as clean as just the Dash features. So while I'm not trying to shit on Raptorium, all I'm trying to say is I will be moving away from Raptorium and closer to Dash. Dashtorium, if you will, right? So that's more or less what kind of, without saying what's really going on under the hood, that's the minor update. And then the major update is either refactoring towards what was I planning for that one? Refactoring towards C++ 17, because I think we're based off of C++ 14 right now, and that is for one of the things I wanted to deal with, and that is going forward, I wanted this pegged more towards getting rid of boost for better compiling from source. Okay. That seems to be it. A couple of announcements. Obviously, I'll be traveling for the next couple of days, so my response time might be diminished as I will be traveling and it's for a conference, which are oh so fucking fun. So I might not be talking to a lot of you, but go ahead and fill out questions. I'll get to you if I can. If there's any support issues, I'll try to take priority of those. Obviously, although it's been very quiet because the crypto community as a whole has been kind of no fault of their own. It's just the world sucks, the economy sucks, and everybody's poor, right? And particularly with projects like ours, we get the back burner. So yes, as always, if you have those questions, keep them coming. We're going to continue on with this format where I kind of go over things that have happened in the last month, both to the project specifically, the industry as a whole, and these Q&A sections, something that we had kind of done in 3 separate shows, we're now combining back into one because there's just been not enough to make 3 separate entities. One of the things I really want to do, starting either later this month or realistically probably in the first week or second week of March, is make a video about the updates to Bakery and Bake. So I do want to look for that video. And then once that gets into a finalized state, I'm going to take another look at Moonstone. That pretty much works. It just doesn't have the ability to update the software, which I want to take care of in that version. So look forward to that. As always, much love, and I will see you in a month. Have a good night, folks.